hello guys, good morning. So today's topic is a little unusual one. As you know, we motorcyclists, those of us who are serious enough to, always try to improve our skills and always analyze our riding styles to make sure that we're doing it safely. So a few days back I was watching some of my older videos from back when I had the Sportster, and it felt like compared to my recent riding style with the Duke and with the Interceptor, my older riding style on the Sportster was much safer. At least that's how it looked to me. And if you are an old-timer on my channel and you have been watching my videos over the years, maybe you would have felt the same. I'm not sure, but that's what it looked like. So that's the question today. Has my riding style gotten less safe? Am I taking more risks? Now it's a known fact that for beginner riders, they are quite safe for the first year or so, and most of them have their first accidents sometime in the second or third years. And that's because initially they had that fear factor, and when all has been going well for a year or so, they slowly start to lose that, but they still don't have that experience, to know when the real risks come in. So they tend to ignore the actual risks, and without the fear factor keeping them safe, they end up pushing the limits and get into trouble. But that's not the case for me, because I have been riding for close to 20 years now. So what's been happening? I think I always have safety in mind. It's not like I'm ignoring the safety aspects. But yeah, one factor may be the bikes. Back then when I had the Sportster, it didn't have ABS, it didn't have traction control. I still don't have traction control on any of my bikes. But especially the ABS, I always felt the lack of that on my Sportster, and that was one of the reasons why I sold it. Because you always, in India, conditions are crazy. I would always feel a little unsafe riding without ABS, and so I would always keep that extra safety margin in front of me so that I could brake in case of something unexpected. But now my bikes do have ABS, and they have pretty good braking in general. I would say much better than my Sportster had. And with traction too, none of these bikes have traction control. My Sportster also did not. And well, with my Interceptor, you can lose traction on sand and gravel and such slippery surfaces, but usually it's not very dramatic. It's a very gentle, loss of traction, and you can very easily get back in control. The Duke is a little more violent when it loses traction, and it does lose traction more easily than the Interceptor. Accelerating. And because of the shorter wheelbase, perhaps the tail goes sideways more quickly. So yeah, that is something I have to be careful about. So on slippery surfaces, I really have to be careful with my throttle on the Duke. But on the Harley, that was also very, you know, it did lose traction pretty easily on even somewhat slippery surfaces, and it would get violent pretty quickly because of the immense amount of torque at a pretty low RPM. And because the bike itself was so heavy, once it started going sideways, it would get a little difficult to recover because of all that momentum, you know, going sideways. So yeah, those factors were there, and I think maybe those things made me ride more safely. Now, you know, yeah, I do have ABS. I do. I mean, traction part, it's not that bad. I mean, I can be in control most of the times in most situations. Only when we have water and all on this Duke, I have to be careful because it does lose traction on wet surfaces if you suddenly accelerate hard. So yeah, I mean, that was something I was analyzing. I mean, if you guys have been watching my videos over the years, what do you think? Maybe go back, watch a couple of my older videos on the Sportster and compare my riding style from back then to my riding style now. Has it changed? I mean, of course, when your bikes change, your riding style does change a little, right? And when you go from a cruiser to a street naked, the Interceptor is somewhere in between. It's kind of a standard bike, right? So yeah, and also haven't been riding the Duke for very long. It's just been about a month, I think. Yeah. And another reason maybe the Harley, you know, because of the low down torque, when you would accelerate, it would entertain you. I mean, it would make you feel like you were really accelerating even with very little throttle input and from a very low RPM. On the Interceptor, although I do say that the acceleration and the performance is about the same as the Sportster, maybe even slightly better, but it doesn't, you know, doesn't feel the same. I mean, it doesn't feel as good as the Sportster, the performance. And the Duke, yeah, it's got very explosive performance, but then again, yeah, it's not very linear. I mean, unless you go to the mid-range and beyond, you don't really have much. And that's when, yeah, it does entertain you there, but it also gets a little edgy. I mean, unsafe, you might say. You know, as I said, it's kind of explosive. The performance is kind of explosive once you cross the mid-range. Whereas on the Sportster, right from pretty much idle, you would have good pull, and you could use that in a linear way. So, you know, without going fast, without accelerating suddenly, you would have a good linear surge that you could control, you know. So yeah, maybe the differences in the performance characteristics, that also could be a factor. So yeah, that's pretty much what I had in mind today. I think my riding style in general is not getting unsafe. Maybe a little in some areas where I mean, but they do say, you know, even if you have ABS or traction control, you shouldn't rely on them always. You should rely on your skills and the safety margins, because those things may fail you may have a sudden emergency braking scenario and your ABS may not work. What do you do then? Right? So yeah, I should not always rely on them. But the good thing is that I realize those things. I don't just blindly ride without you know, continuously analyzing my performance, my areas where I need to improve, you know, bad habits that I need to get rid of. Oh, come on. What the hell are you trying to do? I think there's some speed cameras here. I better slow down because everybody seems to be going the speed limit here. So yeah, guys, that's what I had in mind. Do share your inputs if you have observed anything about my riding style, especially you old timers. And yeah, this applies to all of you riders as well. Do always analyze your riding, areas where you need to improve. You know, that's part of the fun of riding, actually. Alright then, that's all I had for today. Wild 42 signing off. Bye bye.